Welcome to the Forever in Their Hearts podcast with Dale Martin Jr., brought to you by Martin Brothers, providing funerals designed and customized to be as special as your loved one lost. Now, here's your host.
Yes, this is your host, Erik Reynolds, and I'm here with Dale Martin Jr., president of Martin Brothers Funeral Services. And today, Dale will be discussing making funeral arrangements, including questions about the estate and executor, having your funeral wishes known, and prepaying for a funeral. Now, before Dale joins us, just a reminder that if you have questions or require assistance, you can reach Martin Brothers Funeral Services in Vancouver at 778-330-7799. Again, that's 778-330-7799. Now, Dale, once again, it's great to be talking with you today.
Erik, great to be with you. You betcha. Nice to be here again.
Well, excellent. Let's just go ahead and get straight to it. I'm really excited to ask these questions because they've been burning with me personally. So let's get to it. Do I need an executor for my estate?
Well, you know, we all should have an executor. And of course, what goes with that so critically, and which is terribly important, is do we have a will? And most importantly, us guys, certainly ladies as well, you know, we need to be in charge of our affairs, and having a will in place is terribly important. And with that will, you also need to appoint an executor. Now, that executor, that should be your immediate next of kin in most cases. Like in my case, it would be my wife. My wife is my executor. But in British Columbia, the law follows a very strict right of relations. In other words, if you don't have an executor, the right of relations basically states that the person in charge would be your immediate next of kin, which would be your wife. Then it would be from your eldest to youngest child, and so forth down your family tree. And sometimes we don't know who will be alive when we die, and we never know who that person is going to be that will be ultimately in charge of our wishes. And ultimately, if there's nobody around, the government can be in charge of our wishes at the end of the day. And then ultimately what happens there is all our estate and all our money ends up going back to the government. And certainly throughout our lifetimes, we pay our government more than enough. So the point is, yes, have an executor. Now, the executor takes on the role of making all the decisions for you after you've passed away. And, you know, that's to fulfill your funeral arrangements. That's to fulfill the directions in the will, follow up with the lawyer, disperse funds and assets within the estate, and follow all instructions left in your will. So yes, do have an executor, and it should go hand in hand with your will. If you haven't got a will, I want you to take a piece of paper right now. Write down, I need to get a will. Put it on your refrigerator, put it on your computer screen, wherever, and make that call and phone a lawyer. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to do that. You could even go to the Will Society, and for free of charge, they'll give you a template to fill out a will. But I really think it's important to get that registered, and then part and parcel with that, boom, get your executor, make sure that executor is appointed and in place, and you'll have peace of mind knowing that if something happens to you, you've got the right person looking after your wishes at the end of your life.
Now, Dale, if there is no one to look after my affairs when I'm gone, who does?
Well, you know, I just touched on that on my last thought. And my dad used to always have kind of a funny line. He would talk to people, and people would say, well, Dale, what is the death rate? And Dad would think, and he'd take time, he'd look at his watch. He says, well, as far as I know, and as long as I can remember, the death rate is 100%. So none of us get out of this life alive. And I think that's so important to know. So if people say to you, well, I don't need a will, or I'll get around to getting a will, ultimately you do need a will, and you will have what end-of-life expenses. And if you've not done a will, and if you've not appointed an executor, you're really asking the public trustee to step in and to look after on your behalf all of your pertinent wishes at the end of their life, and they're going to disperse the funds. Now, if you've got surviving relatives, obviously the right to look after your assets and financial affairs at the end will go down to the next living relative in accordance to the law. And so rather than not having that happen, and certainly having the government disperse your assets at the end of the life, have your executor have that in place. And it's kind of repetitive from the first question, but I think I can't stress it enough. So put that sticky note on your computer screen. Talk to your spouse, your family members, and let's get that will done. It's terribly important. It's simple, and it can be inexpensive, and the executor goes hand in hand with that.
Absolutely. And, of course, you can't hear good information too many times. So let's go ahead and move on to the next question I have, which is about pre-planning. How do I pre-plan my funeral wishes?
Well, once you do your will, you should follow up and do the second thing. And the second thing is get something in writing with your wishes. And if you go to your computer where you've got that little sticky note that says, I need a will, you can put on that sticky note, and I should also pre-plan my funeral wishes. Well, if you go to my website, Martin Brothers website, it's www.mbfunerals.com. That's mbfunerals.com. And click on the green button. It says pre-plan my funeral wishes now. And of course, the one page comes up. It's about 10 different points of questions that we ask. Room for you to write down your personal specific wishes that might be very unique to you. Then click the submit button. And when you submit those wishes, we put those permanently on file at the funeral home here at Martin Brothers. And we send you a formal copy with your wishes. And we send you a beautiful plastic personal identification card that you put in your wallet for safekeeping, so that wherever you're traveling in the world, if something should happen to you, they'll know that your funeral wishes are with Martin Brothers and the file is intact. Sometimes people will put their funeral wishes with their will, and you should never do that, because the will is read usually a week after the funeral. And if you put your funeral wishes with the will, well, they're going to find out after the funeral that your wishes were maybe contrary to what really happened. So your funeral prearrangement should be already done, and that should be something that your executor would know where they are, and certainly that ID card will direct people that your wishes are with Martin Brothers, and we have it on file.
Well, speaking about pre-planning and all the great information you've already given us about that, should I prepay my funeral?
Well, sure, and that's a great question. Lots of us have life insurance, but many people do not have life insurance. And you also got to remember that at the end of your life, you may have outlived a lot of your money. I mean, one of the things that we suffer from a little bit in Canada today is, we are living longer. The average life expectancy of the Canadian, forgive me not knowing whether it's male or female, but it seems to be 81 years old. We're living into our 80s because of our advanced medical system. And many people are living much later than that. And sometimes we're now experiencing people are outliving their money. In other words, we worked our whole life, we put together that nest egg, and we live off it, our RSPs, our investments. And then, of course, certainly as we retire, you get your Canada pension monthly payment. And so as we live through our life, we chew up that money. And at the end of the day, you might not have funds in place to cover your end-of-life expenses. Some people buy specific insurance that's end-of-life insurance. But what you can do, and which is very simple, is you can take your prearranged funeral wishes, and here at the funeral home at Martin Brothers, we can match that specifically to your wishes. It can be the type of funeral you pick. It can be whether it's burial or cremation, type of casket chosen. It might be a cremation casket. It might be a casket for burial. It can have information about the flowers you want. Certainly, where would there be a reception after the funeral? Where would the cemetery plot be? Where would I put my cremated remains in my urn afterwards? The information about the obituary you're going to write. We take all of that and put it into one beautiful package, and we'll match it up with today's current prices. I think that if you've matched your funeral wishes, funeral packages, I think today are in that $10,000 to $15,000 range. If you've got money set aside or a contract match with your funeral wishes for $10,000 to $15,000, you've probably got enough set aside. And when you sign that contract, you can do two things. You can pay for it all up front, or you can do a monthly payment program. And what I love about the monthly payment program, and we'll calculate that for you, is when you make your first payment, maybe the payment is $80 a month, and that payment will go for, could be 1, 3, 5, 10, or 20 years. Of course, the longer it gets, the lower the monthly payment is. But say it's $80 a month. If you make your first payment and then pass away the next day, maybe you get killed the next day for whatever reason, that funeral contract is fully funded. So knowing full well that you've made your first payment, that life insurance policy kicks in and you're funded. Now, if you live out the term of the insurance package, maybe it's a 5-year plan, which is very common. At the end of 5 years, the payments are done, and that funeral contract is frozen in time and will never go up in price. And the beauty of it is the funeral contract matches the cost of living. So if the funeral costs $10,000 today, in 20 years, that same funeral might cost $25,000. Well, that package has grown to match it, and the funeral home, certainly Martin Brothers, guarantees to match the prices at the time of death to those of when you made the arrangements. And it might have been a 10 or 15-year span.
Well, Dale, great information. I'm glad to get the information out there about prepayment and monthly payments. Before we end today, do you have any words of advice that can help families?
Well, I always come back to the fact that talk to your family about what your wishes are, certainly your spouse or significant other. But also come see us at the funeral. Come to Martin Brothers and meet with one of our funeral directors. I mean, we're professionals. We've been in the funeral business since 1907 in our family, and we have a long history of experience, but we're also leaders within the profession. We have some of the most advanced packages to make your experience as easy as possible. And I think our website is very thorough for you to find out information. The website will certainly give you cost ranges on what funerals cost. But I think coming down to talk to us, pick up the phone and say, hey, I just want to pop in and talk to one of your funeral professionals. And it takes a half hour or 45 minutes to an hour to get the information and to set up a file. And it's really easy. And there's no cost or obligation. Don't be afraid to do it. You'll be glad you did. You'll have peace of mind. And we'll put all the details together at the level that's important to you. And trust us, our advice is there to guide you. And it's good, valued advice. Whether it's simple or elaborate, we're there to be able to look after your family's needs.
Well, Dale, excellent information again today and very interesting as always. But again, we are going to be out of time. So for the listener, if you can think of someone who might benefit from what we've covered here today, forward this podcast to them. They'll thank you for it later on. And also, if you have questions or require assistance, you can reach Martin Brothers Funeral Services in Vancouver at 778-330-7799. Again, that's 778-330-7799, or visit their website at www.mbfunerals.com. Again, that's www.mbfunerals.com. Dale, once again, for myself, for the listeners, thanks so much for the conversation today.
Erik, it's a pleasure as usual. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Forever in Their Hearts podcast with Dale Martin Jr. from Martin Brothers Funeral Services. Our 4 generations of service in the funeral profession have equipped us with a legacy of understanding. In your hour of need, Martin Brothers is there. Call Martin Brothers in Vancouver today at 778-330-7799 and visit them online at www.mbfunerals.com.